Okay, good morning, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. Good to see you all. Glad that you're all here. Before we jump in, just me figuring out how to use this. Do I press the arrow? Thank you. So today's agenda, we have some quick announcements. And then we'll get into some job searching tips. We have a post-secondary panel today. Really excited about that. We'll break for lunch, and then you guys will have a choice of workshops to go to. And then lastly, we'll have reflections. So pretty simple day. Announcements, remember that there is not PD next week. Do not show up, we will not be here. While you're taking a break, please remember to sign up for your mandatory required one-on-one meetings with your success coach or advisor. If you haven't done that already, today would be a really great time to check in with us. You can do that by following the link to our calendars, and then just sign up for 30 minutes. Even less than that, go ahead and get that done today if you haven't already. Okay. Before we get started, just wanted to get a feel of the room and kind of what's been on y'all's mind as far as post-secondary education. And so if you have applied to college or another form of post-secondary education, what are some things that you wish you'd known before? Or if you're in the process of applying, what are some things you're wondering? Or even as you look forward to applying, what are some things you're thinking about? Just what's on your mind as far as school? Yeah, Allison.
Going to other high school or college. Obviously, like, I'm not going to high school, I'm trying to graduate, but like trying to think about if I want to have a job, like in details, or go to college for a fall semester.
Yeah, making that choice. Anyone else? What else? Carlos? Thank you.
Early for early action, and it's usually always better for you.
Yeah, getting it done as soon as possible. What are some other thoughts? Yeah, Q?
Don't put it off until the last minute.
That, I wish I would have known that. Yes, so a lot of work goes into those apps. What about one more?
Get your letters of rec in, like ask like the first week of school, because teachers, I mean, they have stuff to do. So if you're not like on top of their list, they will take a while. So like you need to make sure you have those on lock.
Yeah, remembering that they've got things on their list too. Good point. Anyone else?
We have actually an asynchronous letters of recommendation module that you can complete on figuring out how and when to ask. It includes some great language, and we will send that out this week so that you can visit it next week when you don't have PD, but to still do some of that PD training.
Awesome, thank you. Another question, how would you guys define like post-secondary education? If anyone wants to take a stab at it. Yeah, oh, a few hands, go ahead.
Anything that helps you learn something, like a new skill or a new talent. So even if that's not going to school, if you're doing online learning, you can do that. If you're going to a trade school, that's also post-secondary.
Yeah.
College is the most popular one.
Yeah, thank you. Haley, you had your hand up?
Any education after high school.
Pretty much sums it up. Awesome, so we've got it can be defined as any education or training that occurs after high school, including community college, apprenticeships, industry certificates, and those are just to name a few. So yeah, any education pretty much after college. And each of these options and more are really good options for you as you start to discover, learn, explore what career options you want to go into. That kind of will determine what that education post-high school will look like for you. And so as you think about post-secondary education options and what kind of paths might lead you to where you want to go, are there anything that you guys are worried about or concerned about, or just trying to figure out as you've started the process or looking forward to that? I know I studied communication in my undergrad, and I was really worried because communication is just so broad. And so I was like, once I graduate, like, how do I find a specific path that looked like more school for me? But at the time was just really worried about, how do I decide where I want to go with that? What are some other things that you guys are thinking about? Two hands. Carlos?
So this is just what we're thinking about in regards to post-secondary education.
Well, yeah, like as you've applied and things like that, and so
Yeah.
as you getting ready to start your journey, what are some things like you're concerned about or, curious about?
So one thing that I am concerned about is that for a lot of places, you'll spend a lot of time going after, let's say, like for me, business, right? You have to apply to a certain school within the university to do the business major. But what I'm worried about is what if I don't like business as much as I think I do right now, right?
Yeah,
That's like the biggest thing.
that's fair. I think a lot of people, as they start their journey, it's like, I've invested a lot of time and money into this. What if I change my mind? Yeah.
So I'm currently entering my junior year at Western, and for me, my biggest concern at first was what I was going to major in. I've changed my major 3 times. I'm finally happy now, but I will say what you first pick is not going to be what you graduate with. So I wouldn't say like harp over it, just go with where your mind takes you, because there's a lot of things you can learn, there's a lot of things you can experience, and try everything because you never know what's going to stick.
Yeah, I really appreciate that advice and those tips because, yeah, you feel like you invest so much when you start and it almost feels like you're moving backwards. But, like she was saying, why stay in something that you're not happy with? Feel free to, change, explore, get involved with different things so that you find that path that you really enjoy. Anyone else with worries or concerns right now?
Anybody worried about paying for it?
I'm still worried about paying for my school.
Same.
Yeah, those are real. All right, thank you for sharing. So today's session is just meant to help you all start exploring or continue asking those questions. If you started already, thinking about different options, thinking about what might be the best option for you. And so we're just here today to kind of help you connect some of those ideas about your post-secondary education. And that would be all. We'll be moving on to job searching.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to get settled here with my notes. I apologize, they're virtual today. So, all right. So we've talked a little bit about job searching in the past, but essentially we just kind of want to revisit it and emphasize that it's really an important decision-making process. And so we just want to talk about kind of how you make decisions, first of all. And so, getting to know yourself and getting to kind of answer these questions can help you learn more about that decision-making process for you and then eventually in the job or the workplace. So if I could have some people answer this. So we've got a few questions that we want to pose to you. And then we'll actually take some time to share as a group, and then we'll have everyone share out. But if you could just take some time to think about what are your values, what are your talents, what are your skills, what are your interests, and what is the ideal work environment? Oh, sorry, I clicked it earlier. There we go. Perfect. Sorry, I moved it without noticing when I brought my notes up. Shout out to Allison for that. Anyways, so if you want to take a few minutes to reflect on those questions. So again, what are your values, talents, skills, interests, and your ideal work environment? So take a few seconds to think about that and talk with your group members, and then we'll have everyone share out. I'm so underprepared for this. It's like, oh, I'm going to. It's okay. I'm just reading it. Huh? I'm sorry. What? I try. I mean, it's my job. I'm embarrassed because no one told me. I was just standing up here, not even realizing, and then all of a sudden. I was just too busy chug-a-lug-a-mugging away. Like, because the questions aren't on the slides, so it was like, okay. I was like, there's 5 questions. So yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about then this, like knowing your community and that, and then resources, and we can kind of wrap up after we have them share out. Sounds good. I don't know if we give them another minute or two. Just so much technology up here too. I brought my laptop up. I was like, "This."
But it's like it's overwhelming because we didn't have like sheets this week. So
Right.
we need
Right.
something. Somebody needs
I know. It was like, all right, note to self. Next time, actually make sure you have your notes. I love when they actually discuss. I'm like, yeah,
Yes, don't ever forget what you told me.
I'm also glad that they came. It seemed like it was going to be a low turnout at first.
I was thinking the same, like, especially since we had the like common worms there. But,
Right. It's like, all right.
a lot of people got sick too and like called their own.
I know. I feel like stuff is going around again. Like, ooh, okay, more reason to just be a homebody.
Right.
Be lazy.
For real. Netflix and chill.
I didn't even check the time. I don't know how much longer we want to give them. Like another minute maybe, and then okay.
Good.
I'm so bad with that. That's like one of my worst things. I like let them go, and then I'm like, I was not paying attention at all. Just been doing my own thing. Okay. Ooh, sorry, that was a little louder than I expected, y'all. Didn't mean to blow you away this Friday morning. But we're going to come back together. It sounds like you had some awesome discussions. And if we could just have some people share out, you can discuss maybe some of your values, your talents, skills, interests, or what your ideal work environment is. Just kind of your thoughts on some of the self-reflection you did. Yeah, absolutely.
So for ideal environment, I said a place that offers flexibility and creativity. I'm going into education, so a space that allows me to express my creativity without being limited, in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great reflection. Anyone else want to share? Can be your interests, what you want from a work environment, what you value. Awesome. Haley?
I don't know. We agreed on this table that organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Organization is a big one, and I think, I'm sure I shouldn't say I think a lot of us, but I feel like that's a big one for a lot of people. You know, having an employer that is all over the place or a work environment that is kind of chaotic, you know, may not be the best for you. And so having that organization and structure is really good. So that's definitely a, you know, good reflection and thing to think of. Can we have one more person share? I see Allison up here. Oh, sorry, I didn't even see. I'm just too busy staring straight ahead. There you go, Cameron, then we can have Allison.
I was gonna say, as far as like the workplace that I like is like having a area to myself. Like right now, I have an office and I love it. So just having a nice area to myself instead of just standing all the time and doing stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great one. Having your own space, whether it's an office or just finding, you know, and place in your work or office where you can do that, if that's something you need, is, you know, incredible. And, you know, some workplaces even have like quiet rooms or kind of like relaxation rooms now where you can go and take that space if you're, you know, maybe not able to otherwise. So definitely be on the lookout for things like that and know what you want from your employer. So awesome. I will hand it off to Janae.
Yeah. So another thing that is important for job searching is knowing your community, right? So just identifying and connecting with the people in your community. And a good way to do this is by, you know, networking, really putting yourself out there, maybe getting involved in like student events or like community events that you see. But again, that knowing your community, knowing the community that you're in, knowing the community that you want to apply to, or knowing the job that you want to apply to, knowing the community that it's in is really important, and honestly just facilitates your whole application process. Another thing is just getting to know your resources. So you want to have your resume together, you want to have your cover letter. We went over all these things, and everyone is here to help if you guys still have questions on those. Another thing is to just get organized. We mentioned this earlier, you know, you want to have all those materials in one place. And if you are applying, I'm going to take this down. If you are applying, you know, a good idea would be to maybe keep an Excel sheet so you can like keep track of the employers and like your emails. You know, you want to send thank you emails like after you apply for a position. Just keeping things organized and keeping things together will honestly help you in the long run. I would say like another tip is maybe keeping like your resume materials in one place. I'm sure you guys know about that, but yeah, just stay organized. It'll really save you some time when you're applying and like trying to get different resumes out to different jobs. If you've got it all in one place, it's easier. Again, you want to do your research on the organization that you're applying to. I think we mentioned this before as well. When you go into your interview, they might ask you questions about just to test you, just to see if they've, you know, they want to see that you've done your research. So just knowing the organization that you're working for, look into the website. A lot of organizations have, you know, Instagrams, Twitters, and things like that. Just check it out, like do some exploring and see what information you can find out and bring to your interview and just help you with your overall process.
Absolutely. And I just want to add to that, you know, taking the time to do all these reflections is, you know, super important because it really allows you to kind of identify across different facets of your personal and professional life what you want to do. So, you know, and what your needs are. And that really plays into kind of that bigger idea of wellness that we've talked about. And knowing these things about yourself can also be advantageous when you're looking for a job, not only because it helps you, but when you have conversations conversations with employers. So I actually had an interview once where they asked me what a bad day looked like for me and what I needed on a bad day, and I had not personally taken the time to reflect on something like that, and it kind of took me back. But a question like that is really important to consider when you're thinking about a team dynamic. So definitely just take the time to work on that self-reflection, and really work through all of the different facets of what you want and need from your job so that you can exceed and achieve wellness. So I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, so just really quickly, just some things to think about and brainstorm. Think about the career options that you're currently exploring. We want you guys to just really think about whether or not it's a good fit for you and whether you think that you're, prepared and capable for it. We want to explore, see if anyone's pursuing a career currently. You guys can talk about that amongst your groups. I don't know if anyone has an idea of what, in the long term, what they want to go into. But if you guys want to get into groups for a couple of minutes, we're going to talk about what career options you're considering. Do you feel like this is a good fit for you personally? The third question is, what concerns do you have about it? Do you know anyone that is currently pursuing this career or position? And, we'll just give you guys some time to just think about that amongst yourself, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. We'll be quick, and then we'll share and then move on.
Said yee. What career do I want?
Right. This is an activity for us.
I know. I feel like that's half of this program. Last week was the financial planning, now this. I'm like, maybe I need to sit down too. Okay. For real. All of a sudden, I saw it flashing on the screen from the corner of my eye up here. I was like, what?
Give you guys about another minute or so, and then we'll wrap it up. Alrighty. Really quickly, does anyone have any career options or a career that they're currently trying to pursue? Does anyone know of that already? We've got a couple of hands up here.
As many of you guys know, I'm really into retail, so I'm thinking about either retail or baking or bakery. Not baking so much, but that's, I don't know.
Nice. So you like behind the scenes bakery deal? Perfect. Sounds nice. Does anyone else want to share something that they're considering pursuing, a field of interest?
Okay. I'm thinking about pursuing business law or policy in business. I have 2 cousins that are lawyers in Chicago, so they would be pretty nice to know as well. So
yes, that sounds good. Maybe you can go and visit and kind of see what they do. So that's nice. You've got some role models to look up to. Over here.
I want to be a sickle cell hematologist. I had sickle cell, so it's like, and I have friends who have sickle cell, so I want to do that.
Nice. So it hits close to home for you. I like that passion. We got another one in the back.
I've always wanted to do fashion design. I've been researching schools since I was in the 5th grade. I don't know anyone who's a designer, but I do have an aunt who's not like a big time model or anything, but she does do modeling.
Nice.
She gets, yeah. So.
Awesome. Good to hear, guys. Good to hear. So really quickly, any concerns? Is anyone concerned about the future, their future career, or like anything like that? Like any reservations, any questions for us? The success coaches have all, we've all had professional careers, so we're here to answer any questions you guys have, or I think we got one over here.
Oh, I see Haley.
Oh, and then Haley as well. Go ahead.
Right now I want to be a teacher, and I don't know what grade I'm going to work in, or I'm not sure. I don't have a specific subject that I really want to do.
Nice. So yeah, it's good that you know. I don't know if any other success coach wants to chime in, but I would maybe recommend just talking to your teachers, maybe seeing how they started off, or if they have any advice for you, maybe we can start there. But it's nice that you already know, it'll come to you, and it's good to have a plan. Do we have any? Let's do one more, and we'll wrap it up.
I too am also going into education, but for me, it's more so the financial side, because education is an underpaid career. So it's just like trying to figure out other means of making sure that I'm straight, because I cannot live off a teacher's salary.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. Sorry. And then Haley, I think you got one more comment.
By the way, my mom is a financial advisor. I don't know. She works at Pioneer. I could probably give her info. You can talk to her about that.
See, look at these connections. All righty. Well, thank you guys. We're going to wrap it up there. I don't know what is next. I think we've had a guest.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was a guest, so pass it off to Kirsten.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not going to split up quite yet. We have a short break coming up. And actually, after the break, we're going to have the panel, and then we'll have lunch. But after that, you'll have the choice to decide between these workshops. I always try to talk so fast. And the first option is the financial aid. University of Michigan's financial aid office will be here. And their presentation will be about college program costs, FAFSA, just a general overview of financial aid. Options you might have, of course, you'll be able to ask questions. That person will be here in person, and so you'll be able to gather down the hall. And then your other option is with the University of Michigan's Career Services office. They will be virtual, so you'll stay in here. But basically, their presentation is about how to build your network. So networking, how to pitch yourself, how to make those connections, and informational interviews. And so, of course, you'll have time to ask questions as well. And again, that presentation will be in here. And so I think we might be a little bit ahead of schedule. So probably take like 5-6 minute break, stretch your legs, whatever. When we come back, we'll have a bit of time for the panel. They will be virtual, joining us virtually today, and then we'll have lunch after that. Hello, everyone. We can all see you. I think you all can just see me, but we can all see you. So thank you for having your cameras on and joining us. My name is Kirsten, and I'll be moderating our conversation today. We're really excited to have you all here. If we could just go around and start by introducing yourself, your name, your pronouns, your current job title, and just a short summary of what your work looks like, what your day looks like, and then we'll get into some specific questions. As we talk to them, please take note of the questions you want to ask them, because we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. So whoever wants to get started first, we'll do that, and then just go around.
I can start. My name is Grace Wu. I am the managing director of the Taman Medical Research Institute. We are part of the medical school at the university, and what I do is I oversee all the administrative portion of running the Medical Research Institute. So finance, human resources, development, and just overall administration. So my day-to-day really varies on what's happening. A lot of it is really depends on what's going on with the medical school. Like for example, in June, or actually back in April, we have every April we have our annual budget. So for about a month, I'm busy with that. Summer is a little bit slower, and then things pick up usually at the end of like August or so before school starts. So we are a staff of 7, so we're a pretty small institute, and we've been around for 15 years. So this is I'm finishing my 20th year at the university. My anniversary is July 29th, so I'll be celebrating 20 years here. And prior to that, I was a student here. So I've been around for quite a while. I've had many different positions at the university. Yeah, I have lots of experience in the area of research administration, finance, and just general center and institute administration. I'll pass it on to Ellen. Hi, Ellen.
Hi, Grace, and thank you for that. And good morning, everyone. My name is Ellen Copeland Brown. I am with Michigan Medicine Revenue Cycle. I know that sounds very exciting to most. My current job title, I am a manager over there, and the scope of, and I'm sorry, my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a manager over there, and primarily as a manager, I am responsible for the training. Primarily, I have a staff of 10, and our training responsibilities is currently around the electronic medical record. And when we talk about that, anytime anyone comes into the health system, they are assigned an electronic medical record. And we train people on, one, the patient portal as to how to access it electronically, and what things are, how to enter information into the electronic portal record, and how to train people of how to ask those questions to obtain it from patients such as yourself or your parents and loved ones. So day-to-day responsibilities for me, I have to operate as somewhat of a project manager. I have to determine what upgrades we will take to the system, what things that, what it will be compatible with, what other institutions we will be partnering with. And so as the university signs contracts to partner with other institutions, how will we be able to talk and share information across to those institutions? Also, how we do professional development at the same time, because within the revenue cycle, we have about 700 staff people, and we need to constantly upskill their skill sets so that we have staff who are constantly able to operate within not just the present job that they have, but the skills of tomorrow, because of the system constantly evolving to make sure that we're prepared for the next change and the next upgrade that are coming. So making sure that we keep a balance between their technical skills and their professional development, or soft skills, if you will. And so most of the time I'm operating within those hats. So you would say I'm probably more of a professional, go to meetings or host meeting type of individual. I would say 80% of my time I'm in meetings. And I think that's pretty much the realm of what you might be interested as an introduction to me. So I am very excited to be here. Very excited to answer more questions as we move. But right now, I will pass the baton. How about Kevin? Kevin, you're up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kevin Calhoun. My pronouns are he and him. I am the director of the Office of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies at Michigan Medicine. So I think this is the third person who's in Michigan Medicine here. Michigan Medicine is a pretty big place at the University of Michigan. Pretty much what our office does in a very grand scheme, we support students who are getting their PhDs in biomedical sciences. So those who are getting PhDs in pharmacology or microbiology, we support those students and help them get their degree. I oversee a staff of about 24 individuals. And so I oversee them. So basically I get to tell them what to do. No, I'm just joking. That's not my role. But really I help people with, I make sure we have enough money and make sure we spend our money correctly. I make sure that the team, people who work underneath me and my team have the resources so they have what they need to do what they're trying to do in their jobs. So we do a lot of events for students. We have like professional counselors so people, students can talk to them. We put on special programs to help them decide what type of career they want to do. So we do a lot of things to help support students graduate. And so I just help facilitate that. Yeah, and also I guess a big part of my job is that I help create new ideas to help our students succeed. So I will pass the buck to Maurice.
Morning, everyone. I am really excited to be here. What a great panel, what a great group of young people there. Again, my name is Maurice Washington. My pronouns are he, him. I am the director of the Michigan Athletics Career Center. So my job is to ensure 900 plus student athletes in all of our sports, including cheer and dance, have career outcomes. And I do that in various ways. We do job fairs. I'm also an employer manager. So I work with all of our employer partners. We got about 867 employers that work with our student athletes to help them. And that we help them with internships and jobs and micro projects and micro internships, which are smaller portions of internships because of the time demand that our student athletes have. What else do we do? I work with our alumni. A unique part of what my office does is when our student athletes graduate, they can always reach back and ask for support. Some of that support comes in a form of resume writing, interview techniques, job search techniques, really how to write that introductory email, which is so important to all of you. I was listening earlier to the things you wanted to do. Those are all very important. Probably the most important document you'll ever have is a resume, right? Making sure that a resume is solid and that people understand what your experiences are. I'm a student athlete development administrator. So what that really means is helping our student athletes really see themselves beyond the sport that they play. So we like to think when they come to my office, we don't get to talk about sports. We really get to talk about them. And interesting enough, it's surprising that sometimes that's the first conversation that many of our athletes have had really about who they are, what their values are, what their interests are. So that's my day-to-day, talking to employers, talking with alumni, meeting with our student athletes. Our work hours, interesting to note, most centers on campus, we don't work 9 to 5, right? So we probably work from 9 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. If you think about that, and that's, during the school year. And we have those stretch hours because our student athletes are coming out of condition and training and practice around 6 or 7. So we have to be ready when they're ready. So that's who I am. What I do, I want to kick it over to Vanessa.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Vanessa Mayeski, and I work in the LS&A Residential College, or the RC, as we call it. And there I'm the RC Community Programs Business Manager, as well as the Associate Director of one of those programs, the Prison Creative Arts Project. And so in my role, when I describe it to people, I'm the person who folks come to when they either have a question of, I want to get this thing done and I'm not sure how to do it, or help, this just happened and I don't know how to fix it. So in my role, I supervise 8 people who are working with 5 different programs that link our department with the broader community. So it could be, for example, Semester in Detroit, where students do a semester away in Detroit, living, learning, interning. It could be the Center for World Performance Studies that's more based in Ann Arbor, but also bringing in performers from all around the world. I mean, it's really interesting the different ways that these community programs bring together the university and the community. And as such, it's really exciting because it's not your typical kind of questions. And so the university in many ways is a city unto itself with its own kind of like laws and norms. And when you bring in like, yeah, but we wanna work with the wider world, different kinds of questions come up. So in my role, that's really exciting and interesting because it's always about, well, do we have to do it the way we do it all the time at U of M, or can we maybe find a new way to do it to accommodate the needs of our community members who we're working with? So on a practical level, I'm doing things like helping our programs think about their budgets, helping with hiring, helping staff members balance their great ideas with the time and energy they have, and not burning themselves out, because folks are always full of great ideas. And then in my role with the Prison Creative Arts Project, I'm in that staff role of working with our faculty director of, well, where do we want our program to go? What are the priorities? And then what do we need to get there? What kind of staffing do we need? What kind of money do we need? How do we want to support the students who are involved in our programs? And so just thinking about taking great ideas and then, okay, but how do we do the thing? How do we get it done? And I'm happy to answer more specific questions later, but that's in a nutshell what I do. And I'll pass it to Sandy.
Thank you, Vanessa. Good morning, all. My name is Sandy Zamut, and my pronouns are she and her. My current role at the university is a technical specialist and analyst at the Inter-University Consortium for Social and Political Research, also known as ICPSR, and I work with the summer program. And our program focuses on quantitative and research methods for individuals who are focused in social sciences and politics. And so during the summer, we host a number of different workshops, whether they're short workshops, 4-week workshops, and lectures that cover a wide range of topics, introductory topics such as math, computing, and programming, to social sciences, things that are related to social inequities, machine learning, race and ethnicity, and quantitative methods, game theory, etc. So different approaches and ways to build and frame research. And I wear a different hat as well here at the university. I'm what is called a healthcare simulationist and a standardized patient specialist. And in that role, I have the opportunity to collaborate with different units across the university with a focus of building out healthcare scenarios that focus on enhancing patient experience and building more equitable healthcare treatment and approaches. And so that particular project, or those projects, are really near and dear to my heart. Coming from a clinical environment, I see there are a number of areas where we can improve and build out our equities, or rather focus on the inequities and build out better systems. And so, yeah, my day-to-day will fluctuate depending on where there's a need. So during the summer, my schedule really focuses on supporting the summer program and looking at different technologies across campus, looking at our infrastructure, and making sure that we have all the equipment and needs that that are required to support our instructors. And then during the rest of the year, I'm kind of focused on building out or focusing on that simulation component that I work in. So very different environments, but both exciting. And I encourage you to explore, and it's interesting for me because my career didn't start that way, but it kind of has diverged over a number of different areas. And with that, I believe it's Kirsten.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you all. Also, the screen is behind me, so that's why it looks like I'm backwards when I watch you guys talk. But awesome, thank you. Would you all share with us a little bit, how did you decide on your career path?
Well, I'll start. I decided on my career path. I spent a number of years retired in the Air Force, and along the way, started young, I had tons, and I say tons of mentors. So mentors are very, very, very important. And so one thing that I was 19 years old, one of my mentors said to me, he said, as much is given, much is required. And that really means is he is pouring into me because he wanted me to see myself beyond what I was doing. And he said that the most important thing is helping the next generation. So I started coaching basketball, the YMCA, AAU, on, and started doing career development for military individuals, men and women who were making a transition out of the military. And then I saw a similarity between veterans and athletes for two reasons. One, if you're not a veteran or an athlete, sometimes it's hard to really understand what they go through. The mindset in those experiences. And two, the second thing is if you are, sometimes that transition, we all make a transition in life, that transition can be challenging because without using sports lingo or military jargon, right, you have to be able to explain who you are and all of those different experiences. So I've been doing this a long time, and I learn every day. But, as the workforce shift and change, we saw that throughout the pandemic. My studying and learning about industries has to shift and change so that we can meet those demands. So that's how I got to be where I am now, really not transitioning from, working with veterans to working with this unique population of student athletes.
I'll piggyback on that because he's talking about athletics. So I actually found this role by accident. My brother actually played for the Detroit Lions, and so when he got drafted about 10, almost 15 years ago, I moved here to help him transition to from being a college athlete to a professional athlete. Well, unfortunately, my brother had a career-ending injury, so he ended up moving back to our hometown. But I stayed here. And so my dad at the time said, hey, go look for a job in higher ed, because my dad worked in higher ed. He was a dean at a college in Wisconsin. He said, I think you might like it. Just try it out. I found a job, an entry-level job, and I fell in love. And then from that point on, I kind of moved my way up the ladder saying, oh, this is what I want to do. So this is what I found it by accident, actually. It was not something I was like, oh, I want to be this thing when I grow up. Actually had plans to be a doctor for a very, very long time. Actually, moved to New York to become a doctor, actually. And I said, this is not for me. But I found my place now, so I'm very happy.
I'm happy to jump in. Can you hear me? Yep. So for me, kind of also by accident and maybe even more evolution. So I started my studies back in the 80s. And I studied electrical and computer engineering. And back then, that was not a field where there were many women, and particularly women of color. And so upon graduation, I kind of ended up in a business environment, more management. And then I did the housewife thing where I was going to stay home with my children. But one of my child had autoimmune issues. And so I needed to know how to deal with that. And so I started going to take classes and just kind of wanting to know how I was going to manage his healthcare issues. And as I navigated along the way, all of my instructors and faculty kept saying, no, continue. And I continued in the trajectory that I ended up with a master's here from the University of Michigan in kinesiology. And then the rest's kind of just been, you know, by accident. I was working with a professor as a research assistant in my grad program. And then he pulled me into work and I worked with Grace's unit. And then from there, I transitioned into nursing, and now I'm here at the ICPSR program. But it's all evolved and kind of built off of each other. So the more I got involved and the more I was asked to go on to projects and to collaborate, it opened up new doors. And so one thing that I encourage you is I agree wholeheartedly with Maurice in terms of mentorship and following and the guidance. But also explore. And when those, you know, you'll have things that will come onto your plate that you are not familiar with. And I challenge you to take the bull by the horns and try it and see where it leads you, because sometimes those doors that you didn't expect will open different opportunities for you.
I definitely agree with Sandy. And I had a similar situation where I graduated from the university and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So my first thought was, well, I'll just get a job at the university and see where it takes me, because I might want to go back to school, which I eventually did. But at the time, I was 22 and just sort of not very sure of what my path was going to be. And my first job was with the College of Architecture and Urban Planning, and just doing entry-level administrative work in the dean's office. And by chance, I had an opportunity to work with the research administrator at the college, and that's sort of opened a whole new door for me into the world of research administration. And I didn't even know what the field was when I started, and I ended up spending the majority of my career as a research administrator, and eventually moving on to become a center administrator for the Manufacturing Research Center, and later on the Michigan Metabolomics and Obesity Research Center, and then now the Tauman Institute. So there's a lot of research to be done at the university. We spend something like $1 million a day on research. And there are the people that do the research, but there are also the people that that manage the research. So all of the administrative work, like making sure that money is spent appropriately, that we're following intellectual property guidelines and things like that, there's a whole realm of possibility in this field. Just like Kevin and Sandy, it was an accidental path for me, and there was a little bit of evolution as well that brought me to where I am in this position. But it's been a really fulfilling career, and throughout the 20 years I've been here, I've met people that have mentored me, and I have mentored others. And from those relationships, they have helped me both personally and professionally. And I think one advice I have is really just, not just do the things that are assigned to you. Like, always be seeking out new opportunities, new challenges, and that's how you get to know the world outside of what you do on a daily basis. And sometimes there might be doors that are just waiting for you to open. So just be ready to try new things, to learn new things, and just be ready to take on those challenges.
I can go next, and I feel like what I'm saying is not new. You'll probably hear a lot of similar themes throughout all of our stories. For me, when I came to college, I had to learn that, what you come in with one idea, but you might not leave with the same idea of, who you are, what you're good at, what you want to do with your life. I mean, I came in and I was 100% sure I was going to be an English teacher, and then realized, oh, well, maybe I don't want to be a teacher, but I still want to work like all day with high school students like that. That is what I'm going to do. And I did get involved with leading weekly workshops where we would create theater together with mostly incarcerated high school age students. And I really enjoyed that work, and I thought, yes, like this is affirmation I'm on the right path. And then a professor of mine said, well, you know, I know this program at the YMCA, and they need an intern. You know, I usually hire you as an assistant, you know, but your schedule doesn't work with my schedule, so why don't you work with her? And, you know, I'll fund you to be her intern. And I was like, well, okay. She works with high school students at the Y, so like, this is gonna be great. And she needed an administrative and fundraising intern, and I didn't really know what that was. When I was growing up, I didn't really know anyone who worked in an office except for like the school secretary. And so I'm like, I don't know what people do in here. And I realized, oh, like this is really cool. Like I get to like think about new ways to bring in money to the program. I get to organize projects. I get to write, which I love. And there was like this whole other thing that I didn't know existed, but was still part of this high school student program. And so then that led to that summer, that same person I interned with said, well, are you looking for a summer job? Because I have a full-time job working with the students, but then also part of your job is helping to run the program. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And what I learned in a very exhausting lesson by the end of that summer was I was drained at the end of the day working with the high school students. I mean, it was amazing in the moment, right? But I would go home and just be exhausted. But on days when I was supporting the program, but thinking and writing and doing the office work, I came home energized. And I was fortunate to recognize that, oh, maybe the conception I had about myself and like what I should be doing in this world was a little different, like than what actually fuels me and makes me tired. So I discovered this kind of concept of administration. And so I followed up with, when I graduated, I did 2 years of national service in the AmeriCorps Vista program, which is in a, like you are doing administration at a nonprofit who's working to end poverty. And then from there, I kind of like moved into more and more roles, doing more and more different types of administration, learning different things, eventually coming back to the university. And I will say too, that with each move, I found out about the job because someone I knew let me know about it. And it's not that like I had a shoe in, like, oh, you're definitely gonna get it. But you know, it was something that I hadn't even known was around. And someone said, hey, there's this thing, you should apply. You know, I know a person there, I think you'd be good. And so just like listening to your mentors, because they'll see things in you that you might not see, just keeping up with those relationships. Because if people are thinking of you and they know you're good at things, or you might want to try something, when they see that opportunity or have a chance to create an opportunity, they'll think of you and it can help move you along.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'm last. When I think about how I found mine, it was truly because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and my parents said, you're going to do something, so just get out of the house and find a job. And so, much like what Vanessa said, they started asking around and then had me ask around to people within the community, do you know who's hiring? And the University of Michigan is a very large employer. And at the time, I didn't know about any types of jobs at the university except doctors, nurses, and probably researchers. But I was amazed to find out there are all types of positions within the health system as well as the campus. Positions you've never even heard of before. And there are opportunities, several opportunities for all. And so while I was not prepared at that moment to start college financially or mentally, because I just was not sure what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, I began working at the university. And I just began moving from department to department and exploring various departments, careers, opportunities. And much like what Vanessa said, I was exhausted by the end of the day just working. which put me on the path to say I wanted to start college. But one of the things that I found really great about being here is by working here, they did also pay for part of my education. And so I was able to also work part-time and go to school part-time until I decided what I really wanted to do. And I went and finished school and came back and worked for the university, and then found some mentors as well, nurtured those relationships, and continued to move up the organization to where I am now. So there are opportunities for those who don't know automatically what it is you want to do, and those who may not just be ready to start immediately. So just be open, just explore, just inquire, and above all, just talk to others and nurture those relationships.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing with us. Now that we've heard a little bit about you, I want to open up the floor. Before we have to wrap up, are there any questions for our panelists? We'll come around with the mic.
Hello, my name is Evie, and I was wondering if y'all thought that what you studied for your undergraduate was really important to the work that you're doing right now.
Oh, I'm joking. Oh, I'm saying that very flippantly. It depends on what you really want to do and study. So I studied psychology undergrad, but at the time I was going to be I was planning on being a doctor, so I knew I had to go to medical school. So that was a little bit different. But there are some careers where your major does matter, like engineering and science. That's a building block for everything skills. But like most of our jobs, I said Sandy, she does a little more like technical things, are not a set path where your major leads to it. And so one of the best pieces of advice that I've heard from a colleague of mine, she said when she was an undergrad, her advisor told her two things. Find a major you want to learn and learn deeply and do well in. So she studied African American studies. And then the advisor also told her, go explore and learn different careers that you're interested in. She was interested in event planning. Like you said, study African American studies and do well in it, but go find a job on campus that gives you experience doing event planning and build your resume around those two things. Because then he said, then you learn the fullness of the college experience, right? You learn something really deeply, you also get this practical skill, right? And so that's why I would definitely encourage. I thought that was the best piece of advice when she told me that. So I'm like, oh, I wish somebody had told me that. And so I would encourage you to think about college that way. Learn something intellectually deeply, but also learn practical skills that you want to learn for your future career. And also in college allows you to try out a lot of different things without a lot of consequences. So yeah.
I definitely agree with what Kevin said, and that's such good advice. I wish somebody had told me that when I was in college. My undergrad degree was in history and psychology, and at the time I thought about being a high school history teacher, and then sort of I started mentoring younger kids, and I realized very quickly that I didn't want to be a teacher. I have a lot of respect for teachers. I have 3 kids. They have wonderful teachers, but it's just wasn't going to be my career path. But what I learned from being college was those critical thinking skills, the analytical skills that you have as a human being in really any given position that you would have in the career force, right? So learning to research a paper and write a topic on something that you don't know anything about, and finding a position and argue for that position, those are skills that I use today in my job. And I think that's so critical. I have a liberal arts degree, so I'm a strong advocate for the liberal arts. I just think it's made me a more well-rounded person, a critical thinker, especially in today's political climate. I think it's important to you know have your own voice, stand up for what you believe in, and have those skills to really think about issues that affect not just you but your greater community. So you know so there's not a direct link to what I study to what I do today. So it's not like, Kevin said engineering, there's a more technical direct link. But for me, I wouldn't trade my undergraduate experience for anything. It's made me who I am today, and I'm really glad that I took that path.
I'm going to echo what Grace and Kevin are saying. So yes, I did study engineering, but engineering in the 80s is not anything compared to engineering today. So it's always a learning process. I deal with a lot of the technology on campus. And sometimes when I'm in these rooms and looking at all the different resources that we have for our students today, I'm like, I would love to be a student today, because they just have so much that ranges from high-tech classrooms to virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed realities. And so as I dabbled in those fields and kind of, had the opportunity to not only build things out, but also watch students as they explore and use our resources. A lot of it is not really the education. I draw on some of the things that I learned through college, but a lot of it is all just exploration and getting out there. But again, agreeing with Grace that the critical thinking is a huge component, and learning to be able to draw or to connect the theoretical and what I learned from a textbook into real world environments, and how to use that information to make decisions that'll kind of help me grow, help others grow, and to improve different areas.
All right, thank you. What else would we like to ask our panelists?
So hello, my name is Kais. I'm Sandy's son. Hi, Mom. Yeah. And I noticed, Ellen, you mentioned that you worked for the university before you went to school, and then while you went to school, you were also working. So how did that help you focus on what careers, or explore what careers you wanted to pursue after you finished school? And would you recommend would you recommend working while studying at school, or just otherwise trying to further your education?
So I thank you for that question. And I applaud you for being here today, and Sandy for having your son here. But mine was strictly out of necessity. Again, my parents weren't going to put money into my education when I was a rebel without a cause. I had no concept of what I wanted to do, no concept of where I was headed, and I needed to get focused. I am a child of 9. I'm the 6th child of 9. And so there wasn't going to be money for school for all 9. And so you had to show that determination, that focus, structure, and everything before you were counted in the one that's going to get the funds for college. That wasn't me. And I recognize that. I was one of the ones that I could show you the way to the mall and how to spend it, but I really wasn't the one that was about the saving, the finances, and putting that all together there. And so working and going to school taught me some discipline. It gave me some structure. And yes, it introduced me to other careers that were available at the health system and on campus. But no, I wouldn't say it also, it opened this real vast knowledge for me that began to set me on a course there, even so, because I was too busy working and then going to school. So it was more of an exhaustive approach for me, but one that made me purposely understand what was required when you didn't do what was required to begin with. But it is some of the paths that we must take for various reasons. And so I didn't want to count that out because we all have to walk our walk, depending on our situation and circumstances. And so what fits one may not fit the other, but the whole story in that means that your walk may not look like that person who's sitting next to you, but you can still get to where it is you're going and do the things that you want to do without it resembling the person next to you. My story is different than most of the people on this panel, but still, I wouldn't change a lot of things about where I am now. I may change my journey for getting here, but I do think it added to me finding my voice, finding out who I am, and I am a better manager. I'm better at critical thinking. I'm better at structure, discipline. My parents are prouder of the outcome that I exhibited once I did finally settle down. I'm more of a saver. I understand. I'm in the Department of Finance, you know, I know more about money, not just a consumer. And so your path may start out differently than others, but it's not about where you start, but where you end.
Yeah, thank you. We've got some snaps and claps around the room. Thanks for that. What other questions? We have time for a few. Oh, yeah.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I was wondering if you had influences or people sort of trying to influence you to go down a certain career path or that doubted you, and how were you able to sort of decide for yourself what you wanted to do?
So, like I mentioned earlier, it was pretty much written in the stars that I should become a doctor. My mother highly pushed it upon me. And she admitted, even to this day, she still brings it up. I'm like, Mom, like, come on, I'm 40 years old. Like, let this go. Let it go. Let it go, Brenda. Let it go. But I would say she was a very strong advocate of it. But what it really came down to it was my mom said, when she finally realized, she said, I did not want you to waste your potential doing things you're not reaching your full potential. That's all. She said, I knew there was something special in you. You're different than your brother. And I didn't want it to be wasted. Like, my brother became a professional athlete, and I was not that athlete person, right? And so I think, yes, you might have people who are pushing you down a certain road, but they're usually, it's a deep reason why. It's either based on their own past, based on a lot of it, and I'll be quite honest, a lot of it has to do with like finance security for our parents. Some of it has to do with prestige. You know, there's prestigious being like a doctor, like, oh, I got a doctor in the family. Like, there's some part of that's pride and prestige, you know. But at the end of the day, I think parents all come around like, you know what, I want whatever is best for you, and I want to see you be successful and happy and secure, out of my pockets, out of my house. You know, that's what they want for you. And I think once you start making those, like kind of Ellen said, like once your parent sees like, oh, you got your stuff together, a lot of other things that they want from you, they kind of let it go. And they're like, I'm just happy you're moving in the right direction. Yeah, and that's what they really want. And then one thing I'll echo what Ellen said, you know, I went to school also, part of my time I went to school and worked at the same time. If you have the privilege of not having to do that, I encourage you not to do that, because like Ellen said, it is exhaustive to you to try to do both of those, to do them very well, to say. So if you have the privilege, so Sandy, if your son is thinking that and you're able to pay for him to go to school, son, don't do it. I mean, unless you really, unless Sandy says, you know what, you need to learn some lessons along the way, then that's different. But, you know, if your parents can afford you to do that, take advantage of that, because everyone does not have that privilege and you consider yourself a fortunate one who can do that and really dive deeply into your education, because trust me, you have the rest of your time, your life to work. And so really consider that this as a privilege if you can do that. Granted, Alan and myself, we couldn't do that all the way. So, and maybe some other people on the panel couldn't do that all the way as well. But so I just want to encourage people about that.
Thank you for drilling that message home, Kevin, because there is a short term and a long term. And yes, the short term, you may make a little bit of money, but the long term is where you need to have your focus on. So go to school, guys.
I'm struggling with my son too, so I'm like, I don't know about that. Fine, if we can afford it, you need to go. But anyway, I digress.
Exactly. And it's interesting. Yeah. So one of the messages that I give to not only my son, but to some of the students that I have that work with me is that sometimes people are going to see things in you that you don't see in yourself. And so take that message to heart. And if, I always laugh that I'm always voluntold to do something, but I'm being voluntold to do something because somebody sees something in me. And so, it's my turn to now turn around and do the same for them and encourage them. And where they have strengths, continue to encourage them to build on those strengths. And you'll get that message from a number of people that you encounter, that you will work with. And as you navigate, your different academic encounters, I hope that you have people and you're receptive to that and think, sometimes we're kind of focused and we say, no, I don't think I want to do that, but explore it. You never know where it's going to lead you.
I would say to my mentees, that young people that I mentor, I would say around the country, put the phone down, turn the TV off, and write. Right? You don't have to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life because you probably won't do it for the rest of your life, right? As you're listening, this panel, our career paths have gone different places. And you think about this stat, 45% of people who work today are satisfied or extremely satisfied with the work they do. 45%. And most oftentimes, what you study in school will probably have no correlation to what you're going to do in your life. Now, those transferable skills will help, right? But put the phone down, turn the TV off, and start writing and thinking about not a career, but what you like and what you don't like, because it's as important to know what you don't like it is to know what you do like, right? And because you took a class, I was fortunate enough to teach at Bowling Green State University, career and life planning. And part of that were for freshman students who were undecided. And many of them said, I know what I'm going to major in. I'm going to major in English. Why? Because I had a great English professor. Well, that's just the class, right? Or because my parents say they know best. Well, as a parent, sometimes we think we know best, right? Because we want our kids to be successful. But I think it really depends on what you're passionate about. And if you don't know what that passion is, it's okay. And you do not have to graduate college and walk into a career. Again, 45% of people, right? Guarantee the first 5 years after college, you might have 2 jobs, right? And the first job is always easy, right? You get that at a job fair, you get that from someplace. It's the next job that's important. Learning how to translate all the things that you learned from the first job and use that to get the second job. I would also tell lastly, I would tell my students in my class, I said, you know what, I have a lecture today, but we're going to pause and I want each of you to network, right? We go to class, you got your lecture, you study, you walk out, this is what I've learned. But what did you learn about the person sitting to your left or your right? Because you never know, along the way, you may cross paths again. Right? So befriend those that are in those classes because they're going through the same experiences that you are. They're as unsure, right? They don't want to raise their hand because they want to be like the person who don't know, right? Believe me, I raise both of my hands in class. If I can raise my feet, I do that too, right? I make my teachers work. That's their job, right? Is to teach. And so again, I would just say, put the phones down, turn the TV off, and just think about you and write. Right? It doesn't have to make sense to anyone but you. Just write down the things that you like and you don't like now, because when you become a little bit older, I'm sure this panel will attest to that, those likes and dislikes shift, right? They change. But just do that.
And I will echo, because I like Maurice, he was preaching to him, Maurice. One thing I will add to that is one thing I tell talk to staff about is like, what are things you enjoy or passionate about? What are things you're good at? Because some things we're good at, we might not enjoy them, right? There's some things that we might enjoy, but we're not good. For instance, I enjoy music. I can't play an instrument. I can't sing. It's all right, right? And so really think about those things, like what do you enjoy? What are you good at? And then also, like Sandy said, when people see something in you, if you don't know what it is, ask them, like, hey, is there any special skill you see in me? Because, for instance, prime example, as a kid, I love to read. I love to read. I love to like investigate. We had a whole encyclopedia set. Y'all probably know what encyclopedias are, but an encyclopedia, and I used to research everything when I wanted to know something. If my parents had the wherewithal, they probably would have said, hey, you like doing this thing, why don't you become a professor, get your PhD? Because that's what PhD people do. They go and read a lot and they research things. But my parents didn't, have that same wherewithal as I do. So I instill that into my son now, right? But even ask people like, do you see any special skill or trait that I do that might lead to some other career exploration? And lastly, I also echo Maurice, knowing what you don't like is important too. Like if you do not like, make this up, typing, or you don't like doing social media, then going to marketing probably isn't for you, right? If you don't like writing, you probably shouldn't be a journalist, so really think about those things. Now, and I also say, liking something because you're not good at it is two different things, because some things you can practice at and get better at. So I also want to distinguish, that too. Like, just don't say, I don't like it, but you never practiced it. So that's all I want to say about that.
Thank you. I think we're getting ready to wrap up here. Any final comments or anyone else want to chime in on that last question?
So I will just say this. As far back as I can remember, all I ever wanted to truly do was march with Martin Luther King. That's it. I had no other goals or ambitions in life other than the fact that I was going to march with Martin Luther King. When I realized that was not going to become an option, I was just spinning. What am I going to do? What other skill sets do I have? And in high school, I was a basketball player, and while I wasn't great on offense, I was good at assists. When I also was a cheerleader, and I was the base. And so when we built the pyramid, I was the base. And I said that as I tapped in and I look back now, one of the things I knew that I did well was I had the ability to be a foundation. I had the ability to help others as they climb. I helped others move to that next level to get to where they were going. And so as I thought about what I wanted to do or what I was good at, I knew I had the ability to pour into others. And so whatever I was going to do in life, I didn't need a title to do that. That I do day to day. It takes up most of my time. I do it with my staff. I do it with my colleagues. I do it with my community. I find ways to make that occur on a day-to-day basis because it's what brings me my joy. It's what fills me by filling others. So whether I get a paycheck or not for that, I get paid for it because it's what fills me and bring me my joy. So understand that what you do or you might find that you're great at and you love doing may not be exactly what they pay you for, but what you derive from it gives you more than what they could ever put any amount of cash in your pockets for. So keep it open that it doesn't always have to come by the paycheck you get. You can find other ways to add that in. It's my 2 cents.
And I'll add a couple of cents here too, in that, there's certain points of our lives where it feels very high stakes. And it's like this next decision, in high school graduation, if some of you are approaching that, is one of them, right? It's like, all right, I'm an adult now, what do I do? And it feels very important, and it is important. but it's not your last important moment. And I remember being surprised at my next important moment. And it's like, oh, but I thought the last one was going to set my path forever. And then it's like these opportunities keep coming up, and until our last day, like we always have another chance to explore something new, to reinvent ourselves, to take a new risk. I mean, I waited 20 years before I went to graduate school. Like I didn't, like most of my friends, like they did that, they took care of that right away. I wasn't ready. I didn't really know I wanted to work. And 20 years later, I'm like, am I too old for this? No, it's just the time for me. And so I guess it's just, you know, you may look to your parents, your grandparents, and like they're still learning and thinking and growing too. They may not always share that with you, but like those opportunities, like this isn't it. This is an important time, but it's not your only time. So if you feel like you didn't quite hit the mark with whatever you're doing a year from now, it's okay. Like you'll get another opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here with us. Can we get a round of applause for our panelists, please? Thank you. Yeah, been really encouraging, lots of great pieces of advice that, you know, I am holding dear. And so thank you very much. We're going to take a break here and get ready for lunch. And we'll direct you in just a moment. Okay, y'all, we are ready to go. Thank you for your patience. So just direct your attention to the screen, and then we'll get the Zoom started with our guests.
Hi, everyone. I might have to hop out quickly and rejoin because it's not allowing me to share my screen. So let me see if I can get this figured out really quick. Okay, it looks like it's working on my end. Kirsten, can you chat me if you can see the screen? Okay, awesome, perfect. Cool, I'm excited to get started. So hi everyone, my name is Megan Hart-Malloy. I use she, her, and they, them pronouns, and I am a career coach within the University Career Center at Michigan. So I've been at Michigan for about a year, and we do everything from resume workshops with students, prepping people for interviews, helping people learn how to network, helping explore various career interests and kind of everything in between. But today, what we're going to focus on is building your network. So how do you build those connections and how do you start developing that network for yourself? And part of that, and a key skill to that, is knowing how to pitch yourself. So knowing how to talk about your interests, your skills, your abilities, your curiosities, and how that can really aid you and assist you in networking. So here are some of the goals that I have for us today. So really in terms of participation in a hybrid format, I know I can't see everyone, but just hoping that you feel like you can engage with however makes sense to you, and that you are intentionally listening to and kind of digesting the content. I think we will definitely take some time and have some time to examine personal and potential networks for you to start to begin making connections and understanding who would be in your network. We're going to develop some questions that can be used in networking. So when you identify who those people are, what do you say, right? How do you get that connection going? So we'll talk about some questions that can help there. And then we'll spend the latter half of our time together developing an elevator pitch, like I said, that can be used in networking. And then we're going to practice a little bit. So I know it can definitely be a source of anxiety and vulnerability for people talking about professionalism, networking, career preparation, and things like that. So in terms of practice, I'd like to define that so people don't sit in those feelings of anxiety, but you can take notes in your phone, you can write it down, you can practice in your head, you can say it out loud, kind of whatever makes sense for you, but we'll have some carved out time in order for folks to do that. Okay, so before we really jump into things, I normally think it's helpful for people to do just some reflection on what they think is going to be helpful today. So if it is like, you're like, I really need to know, like, what is networking in the first place, right? Like, what is it? How do I talk about it? How do I understand it? Just kind of reflect on that and think about why that's important to you. If it's developing a pitch, just kind of think about what you're hoping to learn about that, why you think that that's important. So we'll just take probably a little less than a minute to just do some reflection, maybe take some notes for yourself, just in terms of what you're hoping to learn and get out of today's session. Okay. So we are going to watch a quick video from one of our former student leaders in the University Career Center, just talking about what is networking. So this video was created with students in mind, like current Michigan students, but many of the takeaways still apply. So hopefully I have set it up so we can hear and see everything okay, but I will start playing that for you.
Hi, my name is Kathleen. I'm a career advisor at the University Career Center, and I'm going to share with you 5 helpful tips for networking. Tip number 1, networking isn't just about making connections, it's about maintaining them. So when you go out and you make connections with professionals, make sure that you follow up so you can build that relationship with them. Tip number 2, don't wait until you graduate. Start building connections now. You can start with your inner circle, with who's in your community right now, with your classmates, your professors, those that are in student organizations. Tip number 3, networking can happen at any time, so make sure that you're prepared. Start to work on your 30-second elevator pitch, which includes who you are, what you want to do, and what kind of jobs you'd be interested in. Tip number 4, don't limit the areas that you decide to network in. Say you're a marketing student. You can network in within sports, within hospitality, within other areas that would have marketing jobs available for you. And tip number 5 of why we network, 70% of jobs are found through networking. So make sure you don't miss out.
Okay, so that was a brief explanation on what networking is, right? I said some of that is in mind with, like, if you're a current student, but a lot of those key takeaways are still relevant. So networking is something that occurs in everyday life, right? At its core, it's just relationship building. And so it's making genuine and authentic connections with people so they can learn a little bit more about you and you can learn a little bit more about them. It's not necessarily always happening in the context of the job world or in employment. We'll talk about different environments in which you can network and where you can identify people in your network. Some of those people might be friends. Some of those people might be family. Some of those people might be peers, students you've had classes with, people you've grown up with. So it's not necessarily just this high level professional concept that is directly related to work or a career. For example, asking for insight, maybe it's talking to current students about how they knew where they wanted to apply to school. Maybe it's talking to people who went into full-time employment right after finishing high school. Maybe it's someone who works in a department or an office or an area that's really interesting to you. So really you're kind of asking for insight. You want to learn about how they made those choices, about what their experience has been like so far, if they would have made choices differently, or what kind of skills they've been able to develop, or why that felt like the right path forward for them. So sometimes it is advice, sometimes it's insight, but it's just at its core, again, building a relationship and getting to learn more about someone in various ways. The purpose of networking often changes based on the context and the needs of the individual. So I like to tell this story of like my earliest networking memory. I was in, I think, 7th or 8th grade, and I really loved going to the eye doctor. And so I told my mom, you know, I think I want to be an eye doctor. I think I want to be an optometrist. And I loved the environment. I had a good relationship with my eye doctor because I needed glasses on at an early age. And so she asked if I could have some time to shadow him, to kind of like see what his typical day looked like. Because if it was something that I enjoyed, you know, it was helpful in planning into high school and eventually college. So I went and I shadowed, the same as Dr. Randy. So I went and I shadowed Dr. Randy for a day. And I pretty much hated everything about it. I didn't enjoy kind of like the really clinical aspect to it. I didn't enjoy that he was interacting with a ton of different people every day. I didn't enjoy all the math and science that he talked about in terms of like studying and preparing for that career. But even though I didn't like any of that, all of that was helpful information to me. Turns out I just liked going to the eye doctor and I thought he was a nice guy. It was not something that I wanted to do in terms of a career or an area of interest that I had. So sometimes networking will also teach you and affirm things for you that are not avenues you want to pursue, or not interests you have, just as much as things that affirm your interests or sound really exciting and like spark curiosity in you. So that context can definitely change based on who you're interacting with, and kind of the needs that you have going into that relationship building. Lastly, networking is really just the best way for you to meet new people and then identify opportunities. So if you're meeting people, you never know what's going to come up in the course of that conversation. It could be someone who says, oh, it sounds like you really like working outdoors, right? Like, let's say you were just talking about hobbies with someone and you describe, you know, you enjoy being outside, maybe you like gardening, or you think it's really interesting. Maybe like food access or food justice is really important to you. Someone says, you know what, I actually know someone who is looking to hire for this department that does that type of work. Or someone who is looking for interns in this area or in this field. And so there are opportunities that arise and come from those conversations that otherwise, if you weren't connected with people, you might not necessarily hear about. Okay, so how do we actually go about networking? How do we meet these people? What do we say? Like I said, I like to reiterate this a lot, but at its foundation, networking is just meeting new people and starting an initial connection. I'm sure through the SummerWorks program, you've done a lot of networking, probably without even knowing it. But introducing yourself to people, setting that like initial connection, that initial touch point with someone, that all can be considered networking. Sometimes it's about identifying those commonalities too, because that could be the source of your connection or what keeps you connected together. Networking typically works better when you have a plan. So if we're intentionally trying to network with people, if we're trying to get connected to new people, learn more about them, what they do for work, what they enjoy, what they studied, it's important to think about what you would like to learn from that conversation. And that can be just generally approached in the concept of what information do you need to gather or give, or both. So what information do you need to gather from someone? Did they have to go to school to do the kind of job they do? Did they have to have so many years of experience to get into something? Kind of whatever information you need to gather to help inform what your next steps are for your career, or what you want to study if you're planning to go to school, or just next steps for what you want to do for work. And then what information do you need to give? So like I said, in the the food justice example, you enjoy being outside, food insecurity, things like that. If you freely give that information to someone else, that could help them make a connection with information they want to share to you that could lead to an opportunity. So sometimes it's helpful to give information about what you're interested in, curious about, what motivates you, what experiences you've had. That information can help in terms of understanding, okay, what could I give that could spark something or lead to something that could be beneficial? Keeping the context in mind is particularly helpful. So is it a more formal atmosphere, like a conference, like this one, or is it a more casual kind of conversation, like a community gathering? So what you would choose to share with someone in a more formal setting is probably going to look different than at a community gathering. I might share more about my identities at a community gathering. I might share more about what things I don't enjoy at a community gathering. I might have more commonalities that are easy to identify with people. Whereas at something that's a more formal gathering, or maybe in the workplace, I might share what motivates me, what I'm interested in doing for work. It kind of depends, but keeping that context in mind is helpful. And then lastly, always ask for someone's name before you jump into the conversation. I find that is often missing, especially if you're nervous or you find yourself just kind of in an unfamiliar environment. Maybe you're practicing your professionalism, you're practicing that networking skill. Asking for someone's name is key, right? People want to be seen, they want to be heard, and reflecting someone's name to them can really help with that. It can help affirm that you do feel like you've made that initial connection, you use their name in conversation, and then you know their name for if that connection is going to continue or it's going to build. So always ask for a person's name before jumping right into the conversation if you don't know them. Okay, so talking about identifying who is in your network. So when we're thinking about who is in our network, it can be helpful to classify people into different connection categories. So the 4 categories we're going to talk about today are family, friends, community connections, and then you can think of like teachers, administrators, supervisors, perhaps. It's like sort of like a miscellaneous kind of catch-all category there. But each category can help you identify opportunities, learn more about maybe like a college or a university you're interested in, a training program, a technical school. It could help you explore different industries for types of work you want to do or are curious about. And then it can help you make additional connections with others. So what we're going to do, and I'll come back to this slide, but we are going to spend some time to identify who currently is in our network. So we're going to take like 3 to 4 minutes to just take some notes and categorize some folks into these 4 areas. So family, friends, community connections, and then teachers, administrators, supervisors, etc. So again, take 3 to 4 minutes to identify people within your network that may be able to help you explore, gather information, learn about an area of interest, talk about their career path or what their life has looked like professionally, whether that is about going into school, maybe it's like a technical training program, whether it is about going right into the workforce upon graduating, whether it is about someone who's worked in a specific industry. But just think about who could help me with what. You know, do I have an uncle who does something I've always been curious about? Do I have a teacher who's always supported me and has kind of like fueled this interest I have in science? Do I have a friend whose parent or guardian does this type of thing for work, right? So we're gonna take, we'll come back together at 12:58, and I'm gonna play some music while we think about this, and I'll pull up the slides that have the 4 connection categories. Okay. Okay, so it's 12:58, so we're gonna come back together, but obviously if you think of things as we continue along, in the workshop, feel free to write any of those connections down or thoughts you have about identifying who is in your network. Okay, so once we've kind of identified who's already in our network, if we're interested in connecting with those people, preparing questions is one of the most effective ways. Again, this is kind of thinking about context, right? You probably don't have to have formal questions prepared for friends, for family members, things like that. But if it's someone who's rather new to our network, maybe it's someone we've worked alongside with this summer, maybe it's someone that a supervisor, like a connection that they have, preparing questions can help you feel like you're going to get the most from that conversation. So I have some examples of questions here that usually help provide some pretty good insight. How did you get started at your company or in your industry? How can I get experience now to prepare me to do that type of job, to prepare me to study that subject, prepare me for that technical program, whatever that may be? What advice would you give to someone trying to get started in this industry? I think this is a particularly good one, especially because if you're talking to folks who have been working in that job for a while, working in that department for a while, advice for getting started, they usually have some really wise, tangible advice there. If you're looking at schools, colleges, or universities, networking with students can be really helpful, asking them, what do you enjoy most about being a Eastern Michigan student, a University of Michigan student, a Michigan State student? Kind of asking them about their student experience can be really helpful. How have you built community? How have you made connections at that college or university? Community is really important to help people feel like, they have resources, they have a support system. And when you are going to school, sometimes that can be a gap there for people. So talking to other students about how they've built that community can be really helpful. What advice would you give to a college freshman? That generally can elicit a lot of good stories and a lot of good initial connections, because a lot happens when you're transitioning into that college or university environment, even if you're transitioning into the workforce. I think a really great question that I encourage college seniors to ask is, what advice would you give to someone who is going into their first week of work, right? Of full-time work? How has that transition been for you? How has it been challenging? That can be a really good insight. And then lastly, what challenges have you faced trying to break into this field? What challenges have you faced trying to get into this industry? Very rarely is it kind of smooth sailing for everyone, right? People have bumps along the road, and those offer lessons learned. And so asking them, about those challenges they've faced, about those hard times, those bumps, trying to become this career, trying to get a job in this department, to get a job in this industry. Having people open up about those challenges can really help give you some insight there. Okay, so we know what networking is. We know about, generally how to get started and who is already in our network, like who we can start with or who might be some interesting connections to get started with. So once we have these connections, it's really important to know how to maintain them. So your network isn't just people that you meet and have a conversation with one time, right? It's people that you stay connected to and that know what's going on with you. Could be professionally, it could be personally. And you are up to date with them for whatever, the relationship allows or is appropriate. Like a teacher or a faculty member might know a little bit more about you personally than you know about them. That makes sense. But maintaining those connections is really important. You never want to reach out to someone only when you need something, right? We don't ever just want to reach out to that connection that we have when we're in need of a job. or we want to know if they can get us an interview, or if they could give us information, about how they got into that office or that company. So we don't want to be that person that's only reaching out when we need something. We want to maintain that relationship. So we have some tips on how to maintain those connections that we've worked hard to develop. So the first one is, during your conversation, again, keeping context in mind, ask folks if it's appropriate to follow up periodically. You probably don't need to ask a friend or a family member that, but you could ask teachers, supervisors you've had, administrators you've worked with. Maybe it's folks that work in the SummerWorks program, industry professionals, etc. Ask them if you can follow up. I'd love to email you and let you know what's going on with me when I am making college or university decisions. I'd love to email you, after I apply to a few things and let you know what landed and where I was successful and started. So asking if you can maintain that connection, opening that door is the first step there. You can reach out to people in your network if there's something interesting or new that's happening in their world too. I use LinkedIn oftentimes as a good kind of like example of this. So if I know someone who I've worked with in the past, maybe it's someone I went to school with, who posts, I've started a new job as a software engineer at this company, I will often, reach out to that person and congratulate them, well wishes, hope you're doing well. If I'm curious about what they're doing, I might say, wow, that's so exciting. I'd love to connect and hear more about what that interview process was like. So you can also reach out to people if something interesting is happening in their world. If you see it on social media, could be Instagram, could be Facebook. If people are still using Facebook, it could be LinkedIn if you have a LinkedIn. But knowing that you are recognizing that, things are going on with them can be very powerful. Lastly, people want to hear what's new with you. People want to hear what's going on in your world. Share those college acceptances, right? Share those trade or technical school acceptances. Share the internship news. Share when you've got a job. Share when you've started at a new company, a new department. Other exciting developments happening in your life. People want to know about those things that are in your network. And just by virtue of you sharing, you never know, right? Someone could reach out and be like, oh my gosh, I know someone in that department. Like, let me get you connected. Or, my friend also goes to that school. Like, here's their contact information. I'll let them know to reach out to you. So as much as you're willing, sharing what's going on with you can also really help you maintain those connections. So why is networking so important? Networking can be beneficial for so many reasons at this point in your life. You can network to gather information about different careers, different career paths, to do research about different schools, what could be next in terms of education for you, networking to learn more about industries, different companies, and ultimately to help you build skills around networking. All of that is critical right now. Because when you do get into that full-time job search or you are starting your career, the research suggests that about 70% of all jobs that exist are found through networking, not just postings and then applying to postings. So a lot of jobs, it's called the hidden job market. A lot of jobs don't even get posted. They just sort of will pass word to mouth to other people. We're going to have this opening coming up. Are you interested? And so it would never be posted on a job board or on a company website. So more than half of all jobs are found through networking. And so being savvy or skilled in networking can be very beneficial to you in your career over the long term. Okay, so we're gonna switch gears just a little bit, and we are gonna talk about an elevator pitch. So certainly asking questions and networking can be really helpful, but also you never know when the opportunity is gonna present itself. So like, let's say you're interested in working for a department and I work in that department and I say, oh, we're gonna be hiring soon. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? knowing what you would say in that moment, knowing, what would be important for you to convey to someone can be really key in helping get your foot in the door. So we're gonna watch a brief video on like what is an elevator pitch, and then we're gonna kind of practice a little bit and develop what our pitches may look like.
Imagine you're at speaking with an HR representative or recruiter for a company you'd like to work for. These people are very much involved with the hiring process, so you can be direct. As you'll recall from my video on how to make an elevator pitch, your pitch should be structured like this. Number 1, who you are and what you've been doing lately. Number 2, what makes you unique. Number 3, your goal. And number 4, your call to action. Number 1. My name's Tony Thompson, and I've been a member of the Finance Club at Super Sweet University for 2 years. I'm currently running this year's stock pitch competition. I'm at my best when I need to solve a complex problem by analyzing and focusing on the most important information. I want to land a spot in the Investment Banking Analyst Summer Internship Program at JP Morgan this summer. Here's a copy of my resume. What type of candidate are you looking for? This example is a great way to start off a constructive conversation about yourself and the company. For me, the shorter you can make an elevator pitch, the better. This example is concise, informative, and most importantly, conversational. Now you just have to close on getting an interview. Imagine you're at a career.
Okay, so that was essentially what an elevator pitch is and a little bit about why they're so helpful. Obviously, a 90-second video clip is going to make it sound easier than it is. So we'll break it down a little bit. Here are some tips that we have for structuring a strong elevator pitch. Try and be concise, about 30 seconds to 1 minute for your elevator pitch. And I also should give the context of why it's called an elevator pitch. And some of you may know this, but if you were to get on an elevator with someone who, was of interest to you or your career, and you wanted to give them a little bit of insight into who you are, it would be what you would say on that elevator ride, right? So a very short, very brief conversation where you're trying to get the most relevant, most important information to this person. So that's where the name comes from. And that's why it is a concise snapshot of who you are and where your skills are and what you're interested in. So really successful elevator pitches are not just filled with buzzwords, right? I'm an energetic and effective learner with a strong drive for organizational effectiveness. I can barely even say that one. But those are all just buzzwords that aren't telling me a lot about who you are or where your skills are. They're just buzzwords that are filling that space. Try and make it conversational as best as you can and less like a rehearsed monologue. I do think that's one thing that is a little problematic with that video is it does feel very much like a monologue when he's saying it. But if you can make it sound authentic, if you can be genuine in giving your elevator pitch, that really has a big impact. Your elevator pitch is kind of what humanizes you to an employer, to an industry, to a connection, because it's highlighting those things beyond what's on your resume. It's highlighting those things besides, I'm this person who does this job. If you can, try and focus on the specific audience. Again, this is really thinking about the context. I'm not likely to do an elevator pitch to a family member, right? They know more about me. And so we would probably have a much more authentic conversation than that. But if I got on, an elevator with, let's say the vice president of student life at University of Michigan, he would get a more formal, polished elevator pitch from me to talk about who I am and what my skills are. Your elevator pitch to someone hiring for internships or to a full-time job is definitely going to sound different than talking about your skill set and your interests to a peer, a connection, maybe someone you've worked closely with all summer. Those things are just going to sound a bit different. And then lastly, one strategy that we'll practice today is breaking down your elevator pitch into a little bit about your past, a little bit about your present, and then a little bit about your future. So the past, present, future structure and why you're interested in going where you hope to go. Okay, so we're gonna take some time now to actually develop our elevator pitch. So we're gonna take about 5 minutes or so, because I do think it calls for some reflection on your part and, you know, some self-awareness and reflection. So we're gonna write down some details in terms of what you would want a person to know about you in a short amount of time. So 30 seconds to a minute, that's gonna be step one. And then if you can, try and use the past, present, and future structure. Step two is going to be developing these notes or these thoughts into a pitch. So think about your interests and passions. Think about what sets you apart, unique experiences, unique interests that you have, curiosities that help set you apart from others. And we have some kind of questions to consider here that might help spark some of that reflection. So why are you passionate about helping people, about developing communities? Just giving some examples, about engineering, about sustainability, right? Why are you passionate about that? Why do you want to learn more about that? What keeps you curious about that? What type of community involvement or experiences are you looking for? Ideally, if you could do anything, what would that be? You know, what type of thing are you looking to do next and why? And then what from your background is relevant? So if you're developing a pitch, let's say you want to go into a helping field where you're helping other people, what from your background is relevant to that? You know, did you grow up in a community that was very connected, where people were uplifting each other and helping each other? Did you take on that role in your family or somewhere in your friend structure where you were always the person who was assisting, helping, and that felt very rewarding to you and fulfilling? So thinking about what from your background is relevant is really key in helping you be authentic and help bring that into the pitch. So we will come back together at 1:20, but for right now, we are just doing step one and step two to help develop a structure for what our elevator pitch might look like. And I'll play some music while we do that too. All right, so it's 1:20, so we're gonna come back together. Lastly is really just taking a little bit of time to rehearse. So looking through what you wrote down, I normally have folks just kind of say that to yourself in your head, right? So if you were to meet me in an elevator and I said, let's hear your elevator pitch, right? Just kind of go through the flow of things. And if you were able to write something down, see how that sounds. Or if you were to put those thoughts together that you took time to reflect on, how would that flow go, right? Would you do the past, present, future kind of framework there? Did yours take a slightly different direction? Think about key things that you would want your audience to know. Smiling is really a big piece to that. Having that kind of like energy and enthusiasm can really help you feel successful in your elevator pitch. So we're just going to take just like a minute just to kind of go over that flow in our head before we wrap things up for the day. Okay, so I know that was very fast, but my last piece of advice really with elevator pitches would be that beyond this workshop, practice your pitch to people that you feel comfortable receiving feedback from. Could be family, could be friends, it could be a supervisor, could be someone you've worked with this summer, could be someone in the SummerWorks program, whoever you feel comfortable practicing to and, you know, kind of soliciting feedback from, that can be so helpful in knowing how your message is being received. This is not necessarily a natural thing to be good at. So I really like to drive that home for people, but practicing is going to really help you improve and build your confidence in that and being able to do your elevator pitch naturally, sound authentic, remember to smile. Obviously, the more you practice, the better that you'll be at delivering that pitch to people. I also think, you know, think of some positives with the work that you just did. What did you do well in developing your pitch? If you're like looking at your notes and you're like, that is such a good example that highlights why I want to go into this field, why I want to study this, why I want to train in this, etc. So doing some reflection in what you think is really good about your pitch is really helpful. And then thinking about what you want to improve on. That is really for after practicing. And I think getting some of that feedback from people, thinking about ways that you can improve, obviously is going to help you grow and build in that confidence. All right. So key takeaways from today. Networking at its core is just relationship building. It's starting new connections with people. It's meeting new people and just getting to learn more about them and having them learn a little bit more about you, right? So that at its core is what networking is. You already have a network, right? We did that activity where we kind of broke people into 4 different groups, sorted them there, family, friends, peers, community connections, etc. So you already have a network of people who are invested in you, invested in your growth and your professional development and your career, wherever that may head. Preparing to network is just as important as networking itself. So that means coming in with those questions. That means maintaining those connections, right? All of that is very helpful in preparing to network successfully. Your elevator pitch is a snapshot into who you are and what you're interested in. Could be interested in doing, interested in achieving, interested in exploring, and more, right? So that is really all that your elevator pitch is. You are not necessarily like selling yourself in 30 seconds, but you are giving someone a snapshot as to who you are and what you're interested in. And then practice, 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 practice. Networking takes practice. Doing an elevator pitch takes practice. The more you're willing to do that, the more you're willing to push yourself out of your comfort zone, and whatever that looks like for you, the better you will get, because you will become more comfortable doing that. And so it will come more naturally to you. So practice to the best of your ability. Okay, so that is all I have. I'm happy to take questions from people if any folks have questions, and I can respond to those things. But you are also welcome to email the Career Center email, and those questions, if you have things you don't want to say out loud, those will be directed to me as well.
I was just curious what the difference between a job and career was, because I think I know the difference, but I'm just like wondering from your perspective, like what the difference was.
You said between a job and a career? Yeah. So we think of a career, this is probably the easiest way to explain this. So we think of a career as perhaps like a collection of jobs that you do over a span of a certain amount of time, right? So my job is a career coach, and that's what I do for work, but my career is working in education. So I have worked in education before Michigan. I hope to continue to work in education either at Michigan or wherever, you know, the next jobs take me. But a job is what you're doing right now, and a career is thinking about long-term, you know, what kind of field do you want to work in? Maybe it's various jobs in one field, or what kind of industry do you want to pursue?
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. Oh, go ahead.
You're welcome. I was just going to say, any other questions for me?
Thank you. Hi, Megan. My name is Armika. I support the SummerWorks program here.
Hi.
I'm wondering if you know someone, what's the most strategic place to bring that up in your elevator pitch? So if you know someone, if you have someone that that you and that person have in common, say you're, you know, oh, you might remember my dad, he worked for DPS or something like that. Where would you put that? Where would you place that information? Where would you place that information in your elevator pitch? Did you hear my whole question? I'm sorry, Megan.
No, I did. And that's a great question. I would say if you can find some sort of commonality, maybe it is a common connection you have with someone, introducing that information in the beginning is usually the most impactful. So if I met someone in the SummerWorks program and, you know, I didn't know them and they were saying, oh yeah, I was in the SummerWorks program, like I worked with Kirsten, right? Like you may know her because you worked with her to facilitate the program. I would introduce that in the beginning, because then I know initially, oh, we have something or someone in common. Like that already makes the conversation easier.
Awesome. Thank you. Can we get a round of applause for Megan? Thank you for being here with us today. Megan, we are getting ready to wrap up, but please take note of the email that she has shared with us, and feel free to contact if you have any further questions. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.